Okay, now one thing that I really want to mention and really is useful is something called commenting. It's a very simple thing. Commenting is basically where you can write something within the code itself, but the program won't actually take it into consideration. It's there purely for the purpose of people reading it. So, for example, say if I wanted to make a note to say what these two different for loops mean, because I might come back to this later on and look at the code, or I might give this to someone else, and they might not understand what this is all about. So I might want to make a comment, and the way that you do that is that on any line, if you create two dashes, like so, it turns green. And what that means is that anything written after this, after those two dashes on that line, won't be read by the system itself, as in it won't actually take it into consideration. It's just there for people to read. So I want to make a note here, and I say prevents items from going over 99 or under 0. And what that means is that I can now come back to this code at a later date, or I can give this code to someone else and they can look at that and they can see that it goes, prevent items from going over 99 or under 0. And then they can look at this and they can go, oh, I see what you mean, and then they can work from there. So it's really good for like conveying messages between people. Most emphasize the point that this is comments are between people and nothing to do with the system itself. If this wasn't a comment, say if I just had that there, it would just be an error, because see how it's got this red dash here, this red on line 11, it's got this red block here. It means it doesn't understand. If you try to run this game, it would say, and try to run the game with this object in it, it would be like, what does prevents item from going over 99 or under 0 mean? And it wouldn't understand, and the game would just crash. Because unlike humans, computers don't understand text the same way that humans do. So that's a perfect way to get messages across. It's also a good way for if you've got lots of code and you want to try to find something, then you can use this find command and you can actually search for, say you have, for example, bullets or whatever. You can search there and you can find them, and of course I don't actually have that, but you can find them and so on and so forth. Also, making use of the find command, if you have a load of code, you can create at the top of the code, you can create a contents. So you can say, okay, so contents at space 001 we have health, and at space 002 we have enemies. So then you can it's like go to the contents like, I want to go to where the enemies are. So then you can, and then when you go down to the enemies, you'll create a comment which is 002 enemies, and then you can search for 002 and it'll take you down here. So it can be quite fancy, and it's just to make the whole thing a lot more user friendly. Two more things I just want to mention with comments. There's another way of writing comments. You don't have to do the two dashes. What you can do is you can do a dash and then an asterisk, and as you can see, that's just commented the whole thing. And the way that you what that does is it comments everything up until you have another close asterisk dash. So now everything in between these two here, everything between there, will be commented. So this is a comment. And then I can, it's computer's being a bit slow. And then I can go down and say hello or whatever, and it's still all in comment form. Now there is one big use of comments other than this, which is very useful. Say you are testing a bit of code and you want to run the game and you find something and it's not quite working the way you want it to. Say if something's happening and my item limits aren't working. There's something wrong. This should be, as it stands, this should be fine. But say if, for example, my item limits aren't working, what am I to do? Well, I try and load up the game and it says error. It says error, cannot find, something's wrong with this thing here, so I can't even test the game because something's wrong with the item limits. I want to temporarily remove these. So what I can do is that I can add a comment here so that for the moment it's temporarily removed from the code, so that I can now test my game without that thing happening and without that error to see if something else is going wrong. It's better than deleting the code, so you won't have to write it all out again. You just have to delete the thing that makes it a comment, and there you've brought it back again. This is known as commenting something out. So say this line here, ooh, there's something wrong with that. I want to try see what it's like. If I don't have that, I can just make it a comment, run the game as that as a comment, and because it's a comment, it won't read this line, and then I come back and I can delete the 2 dashes that make it a comment. So comments are really useful, and I hope you make good use of them, because I tell you, there's nothing worse than going to a bunch of code that you haven't seen for ages and you don't have a clue what's going on and what it's all about.